Who was that teacher? As I pulled up to the middle school, my daughter and I were met with a scene of chaos. A car accident had occurred mere feet from the entrance, with police and paramedics rushing to the scene. Amidst the commotion, a woman in outdated attire and a faded teacher's badge caught our attention. Her expression was grim as she approached us, her eyes fixed on the wreckage. "What an awful accident," she murmured, her voice low and somber. I exchanged a few words with her, all the while keeping a watchful eye on the responders as they worked to clear the scene. As the woman turned to enter the school, I nodded in greeting to my daughter's teacher, who had just arrived. "Excuse me," I asked, "who was that teacher who just walked in?" My daughter's teacher furrowed her brow, confusion etched on her face. "I didn't see anyone talking to you," she replied, her voice laced with a hint of concern. I turned to look back at the woman, but she had vanished into the crowd. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized that we had been speaking to a presence that didn't seem to exist. The eyes in the bathroom. I spun around, my heart racing, as I caught sight of a pair of eyes staring back at me from the mirror. I breathed a sigh of relief as I realized they were just a crude drawing, courtesy of my brother's prankster sense of humor. I chuckled and added a pair of eyes next to his, a playful response to his mischief. But my smile faltered when I asked everyone in the house, including my brother, who had drawn the eyes, and each of them denied any involvement. A shiver ran down my spine as I returned to the bathroom, my curiosity getting the better of me. The mirror seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond, as I approached. The two pairs of eyes I had drawn earlier now seemed to stare back at me with an unblinking malevolence. But it was what surrounded them that made my blood run cold, two dark shadows, their presence seeming to seep into the glass itself. And then, I saw them, two pairs of glowing red eyes, burning with an otherworldly intensity, fixed on me with an unspeakable horror. I stumbled backward, my mind reeling with the realization that I was not alone.
Who is it? The old house had been our home for as long as I could remember. My parents had bought it at a bargain price, thanks to the previous owner's passing. But the cheap price came with an eerie atmosphere that lingered in every room. As a child, I often felt an unseen presence lurking just out of sight. It wasn't until I was 14 that the strange occurrences escalated. One evening, as my mom and I watched TV in her bedroom, a knock at the door broke the silence. "Who is it?" my mom called out, but there was no response. She asked again, and this time a low, gravelly voice replied, "It's me." The voice sent shivers down my spine. My mom, trying to be brave, opened the door, but there was no one there. This became a recurring event, with the voice appearing whenever only one or two of us were home. Sometimes it sounded angry, its tone dripping with malevolence, leaving us fearful of what might happen next. We tried to brush it off as a prank or a figment of our imagination, but deep down we knew that something was off, something that threatened to disrupt our lives forever. The ghost in bedroom. I walked into the empty house, the silence a familiar comfort after a long day at school. But as I made my way to my parents' bedroom to call my mom on the station phone, I was startled by the unmistakable sound of the toilet flushing. My heart skipped a beat. I was certain I was alone in the house. The front door had been locked, and my parents wouldn't be home for hours. I called out, my voice shaking, "Mom, Dad, are you in there?" The only response was an oppressive silence. As I pushed open the door, a chill ran down my spine. Through the half-open doorway, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure in a yellow pajama floating across the room. My blood ran cold as I froze, my eyes fixed on the apparition. She seemed to raise her hand as if reaching out to touch the bed, before vanishing into thin air. I didn't wait to see if it would reappear. I turned and ran, my feet pounding the stairs as I fled the house. I didn't stop until I reached my friend's house, where I frantically called my mom, trying to process the terror I had just witnessed. Wake up at 3 a.m. One summer, my 3 friends and I embarked on a trip to a beach city. To save money, we decided to rent a single hotel room for our 5-night stay. The first 4 days were a blast, with each day bringing new adventures and unforgettable memories. We explored different areas of the city, from the beaches to seafood restaurants, local markets, street foods, big bookstores, and gift shops. However, it was the last night in the hotel that would leave a lasting impression on me. Since there was only one bed in the room, Alex and I volunteered to sleep on the floor. At around 3 a.m., I woke up to a chill that seemed to seep into my bones. It wasn't just the regular cold temperature, but an uneasy feeling that lingered in the air. I felt like something was watching us, and the atmosphere in the room was oppressive. I didn't mention anything to my friends the next day, as I had no concrete evidence to support my claim. But a week later, when I randomly searched for the hotel online, I stumbled upon a disturbing article. A woman had been killed by her husband in the exact room we had stayed in. A chill ran down my spine as I realized that my intuition had been correct. It seemed that our presence had stirred up the restless spirit of the victim, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that we had been sharing the room with a ghostly presence. The Hat Man. One day when I was 10 years old, my mom drove me to my grandma's house for the weekend. As we drove past a local bridge above a small river, we saw a man standing on the side of the road. He was tall, wearing a suit with a black hat on his head. He was a transparent figure that looked like he was from a black and white movie. His face was a shadow instead of having any facial features. My mom and I were both scared and yelled when we saw him. My mom's hands were shaking a bit, causing the car to drift to the side before she could stabilize it again. As we drove past him, I turned my head back, but couldn't see him anymore. He had simply disappeared. My mom told this story to everyone at Grandma's house. My uncle said that what we had seen may have been the Hat Man, a figure who was said to appear to people to warn them that someone they know might die soon. I don't know if this is a myth or a truth, but the strange thing is, about a month later, my uncle passed away. Who was with us last night? When I was around 12 years old, I asked my mom's permission to spend the night at my friend Jack's house. We arrived in the afternoon and spent a couple of hours playing video games on the PlayStation. As we got bored, we decided to sneak out of the house and head to the nearest park for a game of tag and hide and seek. Upon our return, Jack's mom was waiting at the door, scolding us for our misbehavior. She was worried that something might have happened to us, and it was her responsibility to ensure our safety. Her yelling lasted for several minutes. Then suddenly, her face transformed before our eyes. Her eyes became extremely large and red, and her mouth grew wide. Her head snapped back, and we were terrified. We all screamed and ran into the house, locking ourselves in Jack's room. We were too scared to come out. The next morning, Jack's mom greeted us as if nothing had happened. When we apologized for the previous night, she replied, "What are you talking about? I slept in my room the whole time you boys were here." We were stunned. Who was the one scolding us the night before then?